building in this example, let's put them away in a separate folder. So let's perhaps create a directory here. We'll call this sample. And let's move these pages in there so that we can build them from scratch. There we go. So first let's create the login page. So we go login.html. And in the login page, we might have here in the title login. You might have maybe a header where we identify the page as login. Then we might have a couple of input fields where this would be the username. Perhaps we put a placeholder. Always good to let users know what we're asking for. And I have another input field asking for the password. So placeholder might be password. Also, it's a good idea to put here the type of the input field. If it's a password, we'll go with a password type. That means that we're not going to show the password as the user types the password. And down below, perhaps a couple buttons that will allow you to click on login or register. Right, so let's implement those with hyperlinks for now. The href, if you click on login, we're going to navigate to a profile page, which doesn't exist yet. And if we click on login, or if we click on register, we're going to navigate to register, which presumably doesn't exist yet. So we have register. Let's see where we are so far. The server's already running. Let's visit it. So it'll be login HTML. Remember, we moved the resulting file. We moved it into the sample. So if we go there now, we get this really ugly styled page. So let's improve this a little bit by adding Bootstrap. So let's look up a Bootstrap CDN so that we can load it from there. So we can add it here, link, href, there's the CDN, and we can tell the browser that this is a style sheet. If we reload our page, notice it looks just a little bit better. But notice that the content is flush to the left-hand side, and so typically we would want to add some white spaces so that things are not so scrunched up. Okay, so what we could do is to embed the content inside of a div that can use one of Bootstrap's container classes that adds some margins around the content. There we go. So it added some margins, and the margins change. Notice that they're somewhat responsive, right? When if it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, it reaches a threshold where it doesn't move any further. There's another one that that is more mobile friendly, or more specific to mobile friendly if you use Fluid, the Fluid container, that just leaves it stuck, right? It doesn't change, move around when you resize. And I think this is a little more specific to if you know that you're going to be targeting phones. Let's style these input fields and the hyperlinks. The input fields, I'm going to style them with say that this is it's a form control, and what that will do is that it will style the input field to behave like a block element, right? It'll take up the entire width, as much width as the parent container gives it. Right? Notice that it resizes with the outer container and adds some vertical spacing. Right? It wraps the content around. So that now the input field takes up the entire width of the page, so that it's easier for users to click on this input field without having to finding trying to hit something that is such a small, much smaller target. Let's do that with the other input field as well. Right, there we go. And how about the links? So the links can be styled to look like buttons by using the BTN class. So let's add that to both hyperlinks. If we refresh, right now it added some padding around, right, some white spaces, so it's a little better, right? And the default style, the default styling is to add some rounded corners, some hover background colors, right? But it's still white, so it's somewhat uninteresting. There's some other colors that you can use, such as primary, is um, that gives it. It's one of the 6 colors, standard colors in the palette defined by Bootstrap, which in the primary is kind of like a bluish, dark bluish color with its own hovering color. For register, perhaps we could use yet another one of the standard color schemes, and instead of default, we could go with success, which is in the Bootstrap palette is this secondary green color. Plus, we can add some additional styles here that convert the behavior of the button to behave as block elements, right, taking up the entire width of the page. Again, if you know that you're targeting mobile applications to make them much easier to hit on a small screen. Notice that we might want to add some white spacing between these input fields, right? Username and password, and we can inspect to see how we could style it, right? Maybe let's have this and look at the input field and just try out a couple things, see what we could do. Perhaps we could add some margins below it. So margin bottom, and let's try out 5 pixels. That looks good. Looks like it's the same styling that they're using between their buttons, right? And same thing with the input field. You could say that the margin bottom is 5 pixels. That looks nice. That looks nice. So let's go on. Let's go with that. And what we could do is take a look at. And we would like to apply this to all these input fields, right? So, for instance, it could be applied. It could be applied as an inline here, but that's typically considered bad practice. So, but just take a look at it. Margin bottom. This is one way that it could be done. Although this is not the way we're going to be doing it ultimately. I just wanted to show you that these could be applied directly on the elements using the style attribute. So if I refresh the page, notice that we've made those changes permanent, right? A little bit better than using the style attribute here would be to use the style tag here. So style, and we could move this margin bottom 5 pixels, and we could move it out here, but then they would have to be applied to certain input fields, right? Not everybody. We want to apply it specifically to these input fields. So what we could do is just say that all inputs, we're going to add that styling, right? If we do that, then that means that this will apply to all input fields. All right, so if I refresh the page, notice that indeed it has been applied to these 2 input fields, username and password. An even better solution would be to put this in an outside file, dedicated file that has the CSS. To do that, let's create our own little CSS file. I believe we already have one here. I'm just going to move it into the sample so that we can create one from scratch. Right, so we're going to under these. Did we move also the CSS? Oh, okay. So let's see, let's create a directory where we can put our CSS in here. Let's let's create here a style sheet, also called styles dot CSS, and in there, let's move the this styling of the input field, right? Let's move it into the styles CSS. Let's paste it in there. There it is. Very good. And then instead of using the style tag, we're going to load that input field, that styles file from here. So we'd say href, and then refer to the CSS directory, and then the styles. There we go. Right? And if we refresh, here we have the login. The login. Ooh, that doesn't seem to have been applied. Are we missing something? Do we load in the header styles? That is there. The source, did the style loads? So it didn't seem to load, did it? Didn't seem to load. Styles, did I spell it that correctly? Oh, right, we never told the browser how to interpret this file. We'll say that it's a style sheet. Let's refresh. There it is. Okay. All right, so there it is. So you have it. So you have a very quick form that can be used to create a simple login page. And now we're going to be adding the additional pages, to navigate to the profile page and the register page.